Do you want to smell like an underground boss? Well, if you want, today I'm going to give you some suggestions on how to do exactly that. Hey guys, I'm George, the nice smelling gentleman, and it's time for your dose of some fragrance content. First of all guys, don't take this video too seriously. It's one of those rare occasions where I try to be a little bit more on the funny side, because of course I have absolutely no idea how an underground boss or a family crime, an organized family crime boss actually smells. But I have a few things, a few ideas in my mind, and that's why I decided to do this video today. Now, if I have to guess how an underground boss actually smells, it will have to be something that's very strong, something that's very dark, maybe something leathery, something spicy, something with a tobacco note in it, something loud, something dark, something strong, so something that will sort of smell authoritative, if I have to guess. So today's video will include a total of 11 fragrances, and most of them are a little bit more on the challenging side. Keep that in mind, but let's go with the actual list. Now, the first one that I've included in today's video is a fragrance that relies on a heavy dose of the leather note, but you'll also find some rose, some agar oud, some ambery sweetness in this one. It comes from the brand of Maison Alhambra, and it's called Jean Lowe Ombre. Nowadays, maybe I think this is called Jean Lowe Noir, if I'm not mistaken. Basically, this is a clone of Ombre Nomade from the brand of Louis Vuitton. And I think Maison Alhambra had to change their naming a little bit because of some legal trouble, or to avoid legal trouble. But basically this is a very inexpensive take on the original fragrance, which is absolutely superb, very masculine. It's one of those dark, challenging scents that unfortunately smells great, but it's very expensive. But Jean Lowe Ombre will get you close to the original fragrance scent-wise. It has decent quality, it has good performance, and all that for less than a tenth of the price of the original fragrance. So if you like the sound of this combination of agar oud, leather, rose, some ambery sweetness, maybe a hint of incense, Jean Lowe Ombre or Jean Lowe Noir I think is an actual good choice. The next one that I've included in today's video comes from the brand of a fragrance world, and it's called Oud Nuclear. This, along with another fragrance that's called Oud Madness, both of them are cloning original fragrances from the brand of Maison Crivelli. In the case of Oud Nuclear, this is a clone of Oud Stallion from that original brand. And this is another dark and challenging scent. Again, this feels very leathery, this feels also very oily. There's a bit of greenness in this one, feels balsamic in a way, but definitely a dark and challenging fragrance that's very, very strong. So you'll get a great performance out of this one, you'll get great projection out of this one. And overall this smells very similar to the original fragrance, and again, just like in the first case, this costs about a fraction of the price of the original. It's not so inexpensive compared to the original one, like Jean Lowe Noir or Jean Lowe Ombre, but still this costs maybe no more than like 20% of the original fragrance, of the price of the original fragrance. So if you like Oud Stallion, or if you're looking for a clone of Oud Stallion, something that will get you smelling pretty close with, again, pretty good quality and strong performance, then you can check out Oud Nuclear from Fragrance World. The next two fragrances that I've included in today's video come from the brand of Paris Corner. The first one is called Hypnotic Oud Queens. Looks like this, and supposedly this is a clone of a fragrance from the brand of Spirit of Dubai, which is called Maidan. I've never tried the original fragrance, so I cannot tell you how close this actually smells to the original one, but this is an interesting, dark, slightly challenging creation that's very, very complex. And I personally find it smelling somewhat similar to things like, let's say, Afnan's Tobacco Rush, for example. That's the closest thing to fragrance to my nose that I've personally tried and own. But this one has less of the tobacco, less of the leather. This has more aromatic feel to it, slightly greener, a little bit more spicy. You'll find a bit of a leather note in this one. There's a hint of sweetness, but not much sweetness in this fragrance. Overall, this is an interesting masculine fragrance. This also feels quite a bit smoky to my nose, spicy. There's lots of saffron. Again, this is quite a complex scent that, at least from my experience, is pretty beastly when it comes to performance. It doesn't project super loudly, but lasts for a very, very long time, especially if you spray it on clothes. But keep in mind that this may stain your clothes, so you have to be careful with that. And overall I find this one to be exactly the type of scent profile that someone very serious, someone very dark in nature would like to wear. Keep in mind one other thing, that most fragrances that I'm about to show you in today's video, or I have already showed you, are fragrances that are better suited for cold weather, and the Hypnotic Oud Queens is actually one of those scents. And this is actually a fragrance that I've been enjoying quite a lot ever since I got it at the start of this year, I think it was. The other Paris Corner fragrance that I've included in today's video is probably the most wearable one that you're going to see throughout this video. It's called Farah, looks like this, and this is a clone of Initio's Side Effect. So this is a lot more wearable than the stuff that I already showed you and that I'm about to show you, but still it's a little bit, I won't call it exactly challenging, but let's say slightly unique. This is a sweet fragrance, the sweetest fragrance that I'm about to show you. This also has a bit of a booziness going on, a rum note. This has a bit of a tobacco note in it. There's some spices, and overall this is a very wearable, dark type of scent profile that some people may call unisex. I find it to be leaning to the masculine side, but this smells pretty nice and smells pretty close to the original fragrance from Initio. And it's one of your two very best options if you're looking for a Side Effect clone. The other one is called After Effect from French Avenue, but for today's video I went with Farah because I find this one to be slightly closer to the original fragrance. Overall this was a good release from Paris Corner. The next two that I've included in this video both come from the brand of Arabiyat Prestige. The first one is called Lutfah, the Seventh Heaven. This is a line of fragrances that contain a few other stuff. One of them is a sort of a clone with a twist of Parfum de Marlis Altair. This one is inspired by Imperial Valley from Giza. So this is leathery, there's some agar oud in this one, but this also has quite a bit of sweetness, almost as much sweetness as you'll find in Farah for an example, but this is slightly fresher. This has an interesting fresh twist in the opening. The dry down is slightly different. I personally don't find this to be too challenging to be honest, but from what I've seen people report online on the original fragrance and a few of the good clones that the original fragrance has, this one is one of those good clones, a lot of people seem to find this scent profile a bit challenging. Maybe it's because of the combination of the agar oud, the fruity sweetness, the leather with some greenness and some freshness in the opening. I personally find this one a pretty wearable fragrance, but this is a fragrance that you can make a statement with while you're wearing this one, and this is probably one of the most versatile fragrances that I've included in today's video that can be worn pretty much all year round because it has enough freshness in the opening to pass as a somewhat of a fresh fragrance. It has enough darkness on the dry down to be worn in cold weather as well. So overall this is an interesting scent. The other fragrance from the brand of Arabiyat Prestige that I've included in today's video is called Soir Sidior. It looks like this. This one is a clone of Oud Cadenza from Maison Crivelli. So we're getting another clone of a Maison Crivelli fragrance, and in fact later on I'm going to show you one more clone of a Maison Crivelli fragrance. This one is a clone of Oud Cadenza. So this is, I don't find it overly challenging to be honest, but it's an interesting mix. First of all, this feels very spicy. The opening is very spicy. Then on the dry down you'll find some leather. You'll find quite a bit of leather, actually not some, but quite a bit of leather. You'll find a lot of agar oud. This one though feels a little bit more feels softer, feels a little bit more mellow, a more mellow take on the original fragrance, lacks some of the sharpness of the spiciness in the opening, and overall it's a more wearable version of Oud Cadenza, but still people will probably find this one a little bit more on the challenging side, and I find this one to be one of those dark and interesting scents that you can make a statement with while you're wearing this one. Soir Sidior from Arabiyat Prestige. And from here on in until the end of the video I'm going to show fragrances that are made by the brand of Fragrance World but are sold under French Avenue and Atour Al Alam, two of their sub-brands. The first one that I've included in today's video is called Sultry Ouds, and this is a clone of Nishane Shem. And this is an interesting dark, balsamic and a very green fragrance that has a lot of leather, but the leather the leather in this fragrance comes across in this sort of a slightly oily way, if that makes sense. It's quite green. There's some florals in this one. There's a bit of a rose note in here, some spices. There's quite a bit of sweetness, although this is not a sweet fragrance, but definitely enough sweetness to balance out the greenness, to balance out you know, the leather note in this one. And this will actually get you smelling pretty close to the original fragrance from Nishane, which is an interesting creation. This also has a very strong performance, lasts for a long time and projects nicely. It's still not as beastly as the original fragrance, but definitely has strong performance. The next one comes, is sold under the Atur Alam sub-brand, and it's called Jammer. Looks like this, and this is supposedly a clone of Ahmed Al Maghribi's Marsh. Now, I've never tried Marsh, although I think in about a month's time I'll have the chance to own that fragrance finally for a decent price, and that's thanks to you know, one of my subscribers. I'm going to let you know who's that once I get the actual fragrance into my hands. But this is another one of those interesting creations. This is spicy. This is quite skanky and animalic in the opening. There's an agar oud note in this fragrance, which is quite strong in the first few minutes, and definitely is more on the challenging side, more on the skanky side. You get some leather, you get a bit of sweetness on the dry down just to balance out things a little bit, but the opening can be quite challenging. The dry down is a lot more wearable. Again, I cannot compare it to, at the moment, to Marsh, but this is definitely a very oriental fragrance, feels very Middle Eastern, very challenging, and definitely, again, it's one of those scents that you can make a statement with. And now it's time to move on to the third Maison Crivelli clone that I'm going to show you in today's video, to the third clone fragrance of a original Maison Crivelli scent. From French Avenue, this one is called Azure Oud or Azure Oud, and this one is a clone of Oud Maracuja, probably the most famous fragrance in the portfolio of Maison Crivelli. So again, we're talking about a combination of leather, agar oud, rose, but here you'll find some fruity sweetness that softens up a little bit the scent profile. You find a bit of rose, and overall this smells very similar to the original fragrance. Has this sort of like a gasoline type of smell, scent that a lot of people report have the original one having. French Avenue have you know, managed to recreate it quite well, in my opinion, and at least in my opinion this is the closest thing to Oud Maracuja that you can get scent wise. It has very nice quality, it's beastly when it comes to performance, and it's beastly when it comes to projection as well. It's an unisex fragrance that leans to the masculine side, but I know girls that like to wear this scent profile. But definitely this is again something that you can make a statement with, something that you'll make a lasting impression if you're wearing this one. The next one is probably, out of all fragrances that I've included in today's video, the darkest one. It's called Opus Magnum, again from French Avenue. I talked about this one earlier this week. This is a clone of Royal Tobacco from the brand of Amouage, and it's actually done very nicely, but I personally find this to be the most challenging fragrance that I'm featuring in today's video. Again, French Avenue have done a pretty good job copying the original scent. When you consider that the original scent is of super high quality, it's a lot more expensive and hard to clone, but French Avenue somehow managed to do it quite nicely. This is not identical. This feels a fresher, a more airy take of the original fragrance, while as a fragrance on its own, it's still super dark. It's heavy on the tobacco, it's heavy on the smoke. This feels very smoky, very ashy in a way. It feels a little bit bitter. There's a bit of freshness in the opening. There's spices with this one, maybe a hint of some florals that give it a bit airiness, a little bit more than the original fragrance, but overall this is a very dark scent, and something that will definitely get you noticed if you're after something like that. Opus Magnum from French Avenue. And the last one, again from French Avenue, is an actual own creation, unique creation by the guys of from French Avenue. This is not a clone or anything. This one is called Amber Saffron, and this is the most expensive fragrance that I've included in today's video, because often this costs around about 75-80 euros, so close to the $100 mark. You know, quite pricey, but it's, as a scent, this is absolutely nice. It's a bit on the challenging side without being overly challenging. Again, you'll find an agar oud note with this one. You'll find a super high quality saffron note, which comes across almost boozy for some reason to my nose. The agar oud feels a little bit skanky in the opening, but then mellows down on the dry down. There's a bit of leather with this one. There's some ambery sweetness. The dry down is a lot more wearable than the opening itself, but I personally love this one a lot, but definitely, just like some of the others, this should be tried before you actually buy it, because this is a very unique scent. Again, something that you can make a statement with while wearing this one. It's performance-wise, this lasts for a very long time on my skin. It doesn't project super loudly, but again, I think that's actually a good thing, because I'm not sure that a lot of people actually how this actually smells in the air. And so guys, in today's video I showed you a total of 11 affordable fragrances that will make you smell like an underground boss. I hope that you found today's video interesting or funny or entertaining. If you did, give it a like, and I also hope that you're going to join me in my next video for your dose of some fragrance content. And until then, stay safe and bye bye.